how surprised are you that those 8 guys qualified? Obviously, about some of them, it could have been expected, but about others, what do you think?
Okay, I'm super surprised, and I think that most people who are saying that they saw this all coming are probably lying, because like who expected those, maybe not with the candidates, but generally in the World Cup, that all of the guys who went so far were able to go so far, because there were so many top players that got knocked out on the way. Martinez is a good example, as strong as a player he is. I mean, he knocked out, was it Abdusattorov? Then was it another? Hare Krishna was there for sure. Like, I certainly did not expect all of this. And with the candidates, well, I would say that we have definitely a couple of surprises. I would also say Sindarov is to some extent definitely a surprise. As strong as he is, he also had a lot of challenges there. And well, in the World Cup, many things can happen, but I always felt like match experience is generally still quite an important factor. And this seemed to play less of a role in this World Cup, but from what I could tell, it was probably more of those energy levels, which were quite important, because all of the guys that made it to the end were quite young compared to some of the other players. So yes, overall, I'm quite surprised about some of the players that made it to the candidates. But I think it's very cool to have all of those people in the candidates tournament. Like, it's a very fresh. There are many fresh pairings there, and it's going to be really exciting to follow.
Do you think that, for example, Bluebaum will perform at approximately his current rating, that his performance rating will be around 2680, or I think he's around there currently in the candidates tournament. So will he overperform or will he underperform?
Again, hard to say. What I can say about Bluebaum is that certainly he's going to be extremely well prepared. He is generally one of the players who prepares very seriously for openings. And I can imagine that for the candidates tournament, he's really going to work like an animal to have the best possible openings. How that's going to reflect in the results largely depends on the opponents, of course, what they come up with as well. If I would have to give a prediction about Bluebaum specifically, is that he could definitely perform better than his rating, because he is a very solid player, and well, even if he makes all draws, still he will probably not win the tournament, but he's gonna perform above his rating. Back to your question, who is probably the most underrated in the tournament? I would probably say Yesipenko, because he has been on this 2730, 2740, and he just hasn't played much recently, or not as much as some of the other players. And I also really liked his general preparation, and at least it looks like he is very relaxed always. Even coming back from this crazy blunder against YE was something not many people, I believe, could have done. So I think this is going to be quite a big advantage for him, that he has this very calm attitude.
Yeah, definitely. And he's definitely very strong. Having beaten Magnus in classical is also not an achievement many can boast. What about Sindarov? He hasn't been the most famous Uzbekistani player recently, but this year he's on a roll.
Yeah, he was always in the shadow of Abdusattorov, I would say, and he's also not above 2700 for so long. Actually, I think he only crossed it at the beginning of this year. Obviously, also before that, always. A very strong player, but since he was always in this shadow of Abdusattorov, and of course there are so many talents in Uzbekistan, so that it's difficult for all of the fans to keep up who is doing the best from all of them. But he's definitely, of course, also someone to watch out for in the candidates, who can perform extremely well. Like, what I've seen from him at the tournament, that generally he doesn't really commit many grave mistakes. This was one of his many great assets in the World Cup.
What do you think about Wei Yi? He had a very interesting career. He's been guest of my podcast, by the way, for all the viewers who didn't watch it, I recommend it. I'll link it in the description. So he told me his story of how his parents forced him to go to the university, or maybe not forced, but encouraged, and he gave up chess for several years. Do you think that like this has negatively affected him, that he would have been stronger if not for this?
The logical answer would be yes. If he would have spent those, 4 or 5 years studying chess all the time and not studying, maybe he would have been, could be 2800 by now, who knows, maybe he would be world champion. But you never know these things. And on the other hand, it could also be positive for him. Like it's nice for anyone to have a good education. You learn some other things as well. Maybe he feels less pressure now that he has also like a formal education, that he has this sort of safety. Like if he decides one day, okay, I have enough of chess, I will do something else, he can easily get a job with a college education. So you never know how things would have developed differently, but I think he's on a good track now, and he's on the way to the level I expected him to be already some time ago.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about his style?
Generally quite dynamic, I would say. It's something I would more or less notice about Chinese players in general, that they have a very, very solid repertoire. Also, when I played against Yuan Yi, I noticed that. But they are incredible calculators. This is what I would say is quite exceptional about them. And Wei Yi is probably the perfect example. He has so many fantastic attacking games where he just calculates everything.
Of course, Anish recently tweeted that he has assembled a super team of seconds for the candidates, and that he's ready to win the candidates. Do you think that he is among the favorites?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in my view, Fabiano is the favorite. If you can even say that, because, well, a favorite even has still quite a low probability of winning in this format, because everyone is, it's not like Fabiano is much stronger than the rest of them, but I do feel like he has this experience which still counts. He's also someone who I don't think really seems like in good physical shape. I don't think he's going to run out of energy that quickly. But of course, I mean, it's going to be difficult to keep up with the younger guys like Sindarov and so on, who do also have some incredible fighting spirit. Fabi would probably be my number one pick, and Anish is somewhere on the top as well. But it's just so hard to say, like, also with who has what percentage of winning. But I would say Anish is somewhere in the middle to the top.
And if, for example, there are 8 players, so mathematically, like, the combined percentage will be 100%. How big of a percentage probability would you give to Fabi winning the candidates? Would it be somewhere like 25 or more?
I would say like 20 to 25, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I would give maybe 25 or so, something like that. 25, yeah, sounds reasonable.
Many people would ask here about Hikaru, because he is on paper rated 15 points higher than Fabi, and has also had some great performances. Obviously, recently he has been training against much lower rated opponents in this Mickey Mouse tournaments, but still, what do you think about his chances?
Yeah, I even completely forgot now that he's actually participating. He is definitely also one of the favorites, I would say. It's hard to say because he has not played a lot of classical chess against at least stronger opposition. So that might be a small difficulty. I don't know if he still has some tournaments before the candidates, or I'm quite sure that he is going to have some training games at the very least. But this is going to be a challenge for him, I would say, because all of the other players are quite active in classical chess. But still, he has quite a few things that go well for him. Like, obviously, at least if we believe him, then he does not really feel a lot of pressure because it's only a hobby for him. I'm not sure that this is like 100% true, but to some extent, it is certainly a thing that, of course, his main thing nowadays is streaming. He makes a very good living of that. And he's not really, the prize money there is probably not something that extraordinary for him. So the financial thing is not an issue for him anymore, as far as I can see.
As for me, I believe that he believes that he doesn't care, but probably he can start caring once the victory is within reach and the title. It's hard not to care in such moments.
Yeah, at least not to care at all. I don't think, especially for players on that level, I think there's always going to be some emotional factor in the game.
But you still think that Fabi is a bit more likely to win than Hikaru, or not?
I would say so. I would pick Fabi as my tournament favorite. But I mean, yeah, who knows? Anything can happen.
I think Hikaru said, by the way, that he will not be playing any classical events before the candidates, if I'm not mistaken. But probably he will have some strong players working for him and playing training games. But still, how important is this being in form after having played several top events? Do you think this is not wise for a top player before the candidates to not have such practice?
I guess everyone needs to figure out their own approach to that. It's difficult for me because I never played in the candidates and probably never will. But my logical understanding would be that you need some good balance. Like, you shouldn't play too much before the event, obviously, otherwise you're too tired. But to play nothing for quite a long time also seems like a risky approach, because it might turn out then that you're kind of rusty and you haven't played in a while. And I think you should have a balance. Like, when are the candidates? It's like in March or something?
April, I think.
April to May, yeah. So maybe to have one tournament before that, maybe something like Vincent or something would be what I would recommend to someone, I guess.
Yeah. What about praggnanandhaa? So probably he is like 99% that he goes to the candidates because he has such an immense lead in the FIDE circuit this year. If we consider that it's like almost unavoidable that he's in the candidates, is he also like one of those guys who has a relatively high chance of winning the event?
Yeah, I would put him probably on third place of my rank. So first one being Fabi, then Hikaru, and then Prag, and then probably Anish, and then the list goes on like that. Definitely has chances. Also, of course, an incredibly hard worker. He's going to be incredibly well prepared for that event, obviously. Yeah, also in the last candidates, I think he did perform quite well.
50%, I think. Maybe
50%.
Maybe plus one. I don't remember. He won that last game. Yeah, I remember.
But he was not that close to winning, right?
Yeah.
There was still some.
He was not in contention, I think.
Okay. Well, he has done out his tournament experience as well. I've been saying experience on this podcast for quite a few times now, but I still do feel like it can matter to some extent. I think it's difficult for players. I don't know if anyone else except for Gukesh managed to win the candidates at the first try. It would also be interesting to check, but like typically if you play such a prestigious event, you must feel at least some sort of pressure if you're competing there for the first time.
Well, Magnus won for the first time if we don't count the matches system, because they changed it, the system.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but Magnus is Magnus. Yeah, by the way, Prague scored 7 out of 14 in the candidates. He had up and down tournament. 3 losses, 3 wins.
Yeah, then probably not the event he generally hoped for. Even with rating performance, he was probably maybe on ex-equo, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But I would place him in one of the contenders for sure.